Mother Earth Medicine,
an ancestral intelligence podcast to heal our future. Greetings, my relatives and my people. I am so grateful to be joined by Tanaya Winder, my dear sister who I've known for years and years and years. So happy to have you here, Tanaya.
So happy to be here with you, sis. Thank you for having me.
For sure. So Tanaya Winder is an accomplished author, singer-songwriter, poet, and motivational speaker from the Duckwater Shoshone Nation. Her intertribal heritage includes Southern Ute and Pyramid Lake Paiute lineages. She holds a Bachelor of Arts from Stanford University and a Master of Fine Arts from the University of New Mexico. Winder's poetry collections include Words Like Love and Why Storms Are Named After People and Bullets Remain Nameless. She combines storytelling, singing, and poetry to delve into themes of healing, love, and discovering one's purpose, what she calls her heartwork. Tanaya emphasizes the importance of storytelling as a form of medicine and encourages individuals to harness their voices as a source of power. To learn more about her work, you can visit tanayawinder.com. I mean, obviously, we're very lucky to have Tanaya here, and I actually met Tanaya when I was a wee lass. I think I was like 17 years old. I just got to Stanford University, and Tanaya was my RA, the leader of the dorm that I was in, and she just held that role with such grace and such love for all the people. And then years later, we found ourselves performing together on stages, doing music, poetry, all kinds of things. So it's such a great origin story of our sisterhood. But one of the things I want to talk about today was your new album. When was it released? Where can we find it? And what is its core message to you and why?
Yeah, thank you. And I love like our origin story because I think it will tie into just so many of the things we'll talk about and share today. But my album, thank you for asking, it is called Call Back Your Heart. I released it almost a year ago in March 2025. It's available on all streaming platforms, so you can find it on there. And I have a music video from one of the songs on YouTube that folks can check out, filmed in Albuquerque. But the core message, it's really just about going through the cycles, I think, of what it means to live and walk in this world when you're born. There's trauma, there's things, people you love, that you see struggle, that you empathize, you have that compassion. And how do you hold that space? How do you pray for other people? How do you make space for still the good things, for happiness, for joy, for love, opening yourself up to love? And then even when you get in those good times, like life, sometimes grief happens, but how do you move through that grief? How do you move through that loss to be able to find yourself? And that, I really think the core message of it comes down to the final song in the album, which is called Come Back to Me. And it was really inspired just by so many things. There's a whole origin story with that song too that involves different lessons I've learned from my fellow artists, from elders when I visit communities about, calling yourself back, calling your spirit back. And so for me, that song, that album distills down to that song where it says, come back to me, like calling myself back, calling my spirit back, reminding people that, it doesn't matter what you do, or maybe how bad you feel or how broken you feel, that you can always call back the pieces of yourself, call back your spirit, call back your heart, and that you can rebuild yourself, you can repair, you can find ways to heal and move forward. And I hope that the album's able to inspire that same feeling in other people, because I'm sure you've seen it on the road too. When we travel, people struggle. People are going through hard times where they might have felt like they've lost their spirit or lost their passion and lost their light. And that each and every one of us has that ability to tap into our healing.
Right. And I listened to the album. It's so beautiful. And I love it. To me, it's almost like a healing moment where you have these words and these melodies and these lyrics kind of like almost giving your whole self a big hug. It's just like, and I think those positive words and positive messages are so few and far between for some reason. I don't know why, but they say words have power to lift us up or to tear us down. And words are so magical. And yet a lot of the music, and I'm guilty of this too. I'm not trying to stick, it's just not really lifting us up. And these songs are just so powerful and beautiful. Yeah. And so it's called Calling Your Heart Back, right?
Call back your heart.
Call back, sorry. Call Back Your Heart. And it's on all streaming platforms. Call Back Your Heart. So check it out. It's really quite beautiful. And and yeah, I think as Indigenous peoples, at least in the United States context, and definitely beyond, we are tasked with an inordinate amount of challenges because we're standing back up from nothing less than attempted genocide. And that shows up in our communities in all kinds of ways. And it's just a magical miracle that we're even here because we're not even supposed to be here. It's a sad truth. Like the policy was extermination. And yet here we are. And yeah, we're going to be a little beat up. We're going to have some bruises and some scars, but you know what? Like we are so beautiful. And yet it is not an easy task to be an Indigenous person. And this album, I think, is just one of many things that our people do to help us successfully overcome these challenges that we shouldn't have to overcome, but here we are. And it's a joyful struggle at the end of the day, too, in its own way. So as a musician and a poet and a creative Native woman, I've always loved the way that you explore your own creative abilities. I remember when you got your guitar, I believe, for the first time, and you you started to explore what that guitar and you were all about, like what that relationship was. And I remember just looking at you with like starry eyes, like, oh my gosh, she's such a creative person, being. And you're singing. Tanaya is an incredible singer and amazing poet. I mean, I'm gushing, but like truly, it's just, and I just love creative people because there's just some weird part of us that just wants to create. And we're very like, emotional and kind of emo sometimes. And we just have a lot of things we want to convey. But you mentioned sometimes it's hard to tease out the difference as an artist between publishing because our hearts are calling us to create versus publishing to meet societal expectations, right? Of like, oh, I got to have this many followers on Instagram, or I have to publish this album to be a respectable musician, or I got to, so how has that been for you to navigate that tension between doing it for the love of it and doing it for the pressure of it? And how do you stay in your heart in that process?
Yeah, thank you for that. That's a great question. And as you were talking, it kind of made me think, last night my husband and I were watching Charlie's Angels Part Two, and I haven't watched it in a while. And I was like, I love this movie, but I didn't realize that I love it because of the campiness of it. Because I remember there was like this end scene where, Lucy Liu, Cameron Diaz, Drew Barrymore, they all got in the fight and they're protecting, trying to save the world, save different things. And then at the end, they were in a car crash. They had all this stuff. They had fights. They got beaten up. And at the end, they're flawless in their dresses with like not even a scar. And I was just thinking, no wonder I like love these kind of campy movies where the odds seem impossible, but they get there just in time before somebody gets hurt, or they get there just in time for this, and at the end they come out unscathed. And like you were saying, as Native women, it's and as like Native people, it's not like that, like we have those scars, we have those spiritual scars where it's hard to move forward sometimes. And some of us are really good at moving forward, not realizing like our trauma is going to catch up with us one day. And so I feel like for me that tension is ever present when it comes to creating. And I feel like for me, what helps me stay in my heart is grounding in community. And I say this because when you're talking about the guitar, I remember being so nervous when I got the guitar, so scared and shy. But I was surrounded by community, the Dream Warriors artist community, right? Like you were there on gigs to help me. And you and Jordan and Frank and Paul like help me plug in my guitar, like help me tune it. Like, this is how the strap should sit on your shoulders. Like, I just felt so surrounded by community and love. And I don't think I would have continued with music the way I have if it wasn't for that love and support. And I know like things shifted with the pandemic, and I feel things even shifting, not just for myself as a Native artist, but like, other people. I feel like the way society pushes us is to just have that individualism, which then is like, yeah, how many followers do I have? How many likes? And how do I stay quote unquote relevant so I can keep doing gigs and getting booked? And sometimes it's easy to slip into that pattern of like, well, this is what I have to do to stay relevant. This is what I have to do for my career. And then it can get to that dangerous part of like, am I doing this because I have low self-esteem, and those affirmations are filling this hole that I or this trauma wound that I like have ignored from all my busyness, and it becomes easier to justify than your behavior, which isn't always like healthy behavior and can harm family or loved ones, when you're chasing the chase and being gone from home so much. And I feel like for me, when I'm grounded with community and family, when I make time for ceremony, when I make time to pray, I can listen to my spirit more. And I feel like when I'm just doing things to do it for like this machine of social media or just staying relevant, I feel like it turns down that volume on my spirit, and I can't always hear it as strongly. And so I feel like now I'm in this season of my life where I do feel a bit disconnected. And for me, it's trying to, okay, let me turn down the volume on my social media, which I've deactivated right now. Let me turn down the volume on traveling and gigs so I can get back to what's in my heart, because I do. And I'm sure I'd love to hear your perspective as an artist too. But there's sometimes when I write, I know it's just spirit moving through me. I know it's something I meant to like say. It's like a spiritual download, if you will, like this needs to come out. And it feels so different from other times when it's like, can you write a poem about this? Or can you write about that? And it feels more like work and less like
forced, kind of.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. I was just saying like it feels forced, kind of.
Yeah, no, yeah, more forced and more like grasping at straws instead of just letting it feel the fullness of what needs to come out. And I feel like that's where it gets harder too, because the more successful you become, the more well known, the more people are going to want to ask you to do things, or can you do a talk about this, or we want our employees to hear about this, or can you write a poem about that? And I think it's just that constant grounding of just trying to, put my feet to the floor against Mother Earth to say like, okay, is this what I'm meant to do? Is this what I need to do? Can somebody else do this or pass along opportunities? And that's one thing I've admired about you that I add to my repertoire as well, is like, if I don't feel this is for me, or if I don't have the time or capacity, like who is another person I can pass along this opportunity to? And so for me, I think it's always going to be that tension between, putting work out because I feel it's my heart and my spirit calling, or what do I have to do to, like you said, meet those societal expectations?
Yeah, I remember putting out boarding school's song, which I released, I think, about a year and a month ago. And I had what I call it my one hit wonder, All Nations Rise. Because like I had this like really viral moment one time completely accidentally, which by the way, that song was written for my people. Like it was from my heart 1,000%. And I had no idea it was gonna go international or whatever. So then I write boarding schools. Or I mean, I've written a number of songs since then. And I published it on YouTube and blah, blah, blah. And instead of getting like 1.5 million views, like All Nations Rise did, it got like 20,000 views or whatever. And it's so easy to be like, oh, this song was not a success.
Mm.
But then the other day I was at uh, this event, native event for kids, and it was like leadership development and helping our kids feel supported and all that good stuff. Um, put on by the Pomo Nation here in uh, or in Northern California. And essentially what had happened was this woman came up to me and she was like, I heard your song Boarding Schools, and it's my favorite song. and
Mm.
and it helped my heart grieve, and it helped me to cry, and it helped me to heal what had happened to our elders and my parents in the boarding schools, where they took away our language, they cut off our hair, they forced us to be Christian, forced us to be American, blah blah blah. And it was just a really good reminder that it does not matter how many people hear your song, or read your poem, or watch your whatever. It really is about, I think, just being creative because we feel creative and we like to share our hearts with the world, and letting the chips fall where they fall, and not needing it to be anything in particular, not needing to have any outcome. Because I can already tell you right now, Tanaya, your album healed me already. And I'm just feeling your soul and your essence out in the world just gives me so much joy and so much hope that there are people like you in the universe, and that I'm not alone. And so I guess that's something too of maybe like, yeah, just being creative. And I need to take my own advice. I have a lot of songs I'm sitting on that I'm not publishing because they're quote unquote not good enough. But yeah, I really want to share without attachment to outcome, right? And that's what I've always done. And it's been a joy and an honor to be of service through music and poetry. And I know I've helped people, and even if you help one person, like that is totally worth it.
Yeah, I love that you said that, to be of service. And right back at you about your music healing me. As you're speaking, I was just thinking of your song, Thank You. And I always loved hearing you perform it live, like just thanking Creator for just loving us and giving us like these gifts and these ways to help other people. But your story that you shared of the person coming to speak to you, I think that's everything. And that's something I hope other artists hold on to too. That what you're saying, it doesn't matter the outcome. I know there's been people who ask me or interview me, like, do you get nervous when you're about to speak in front of all those people? And I say, yeah, I always get nervous, but I always pray right before. And this is what my mom told me to pray. Like, if there's just one person who needs to hear what you have to say through me today, like that's enough. And I forget to like listen to myself and apply that same thing to like writing music, art, that it doesn't matter how many people, like one person is so powerful. One planting one powerful seed in a person, like you don't know, and we might not get to see the way that that seed blossoms and grows, but it really is about making that positive impact, helping people feel less alone in the world, or helping people feel more seen. And I think that's the challenge I'm trying to live in with my own art right now too, is just and it's hard, it's really hard to be off social media, but at the same time it's liberating too, like I'm going to create what I feel called to create, and it's going to help heal me. And if it helps heal anybody else, that's a blessing, that's a gift.
I love that your mother taught you that prayer. And I love that you think about it before you perform. That in and of itself is poetry, as it is the embodiment of poetry, intergenerational poetry. That is, and you know what's so crazy is that same prayer I learned from one of my elders who's a completely different tribe from your mom.
Mm,
And I love when that where they said the prayer is, may I help at least one person today. That when you
mm,
get up in the morning, you make that prayer. And it was a really liberating prayer because like, no, I gotta do the biggest thing. I gotta change the world and I'm gonna be, like Nelson Mandela or whatever. And it's like, no, that's not a humble way to go about it. Like, which, humility has been an ongoing lesson and challenge for me. But like, yeah, that it like, what a joy to help one person. So, okay. So this next question is related to this because we have this drive, this power to help and to heal. That's just our innate, it's in our blood, I think. Everyone's blood, not like humanity's very actually hardwired for empathy, contrary to popular belief. But then, how does it feel to be a Native woman with so much power to help and so much ability to effectuate change in an environment where so much needs to be done? So, as Native women, really as anyone, but definitely Native women, I mean, we're so capable and we're so powerful and there's so much work to do that I feel like we can accidentally get lost in the work. We can like give our entire being to the work until there's none of us left. And we could do this every day for the rest of our life and not get to the bottom of it. So how do you navigate both the opportunities we have to change the world and our limitations of our bodies and not taking on too much of the weight of the work to change the world, if that makes sense?
yeah, no, that makes complete sense. And it's a lesson I feel like I've had to learn over and over again. I think when I was in my 20s, there'd be some years where I would spend more nights in a hotel than my own apartment or in a plane more than I was on the ground, just going from different places. And I would always reach that burnout where my body would make me get sick or I would just not be able to do anything and collapse. And I was single then, so it was a lot harder on me. And then when I got a partner, it was like I'm just going to be able to do more because I have someone to take care of me. And I did that for a while too. But then it was getting to this point, I feel like, where my personal relationships and friendships were getting damaged because I was out there too much. I remember when my grandma passed away during the pandemic, I thought, wow, like I had really just prioritized like work and my work with Native youth so much more than my family. And yes, my family was very proud of me, but I had missed so much time, like time I won't get back, and always just taking for granted like my grandma's going to be there, my family's going to be there. And at that time I pivoted, I took a different job, so I would be able to have more flexibility, a remote job. But then I fell back again into doing like the work and going to all of these different places. And um, I think it really is hard to balance that like ego and wanting to feel needed, wanting to feel worthy, wanting to feel special, which comes from all kinds of different wounds, that we all have, wanting to feel that my life matters, that I could make it matter, and yet trying to listen to all the things we like say, right? Like, Creator loves you just as you are. And the things I tell other people, you don't have to have thousands of followers. You don't have to be famous. You don't have to have all X, Y, and Z for your life to matter. You can just be you. You can be a good relative. You can be a good sister or auntie or brother um, and that is meaningful. That saying, like, you don't have to, you mean the world to somebody. And I think for me, it's like trying to juggle all of those things. And right now, I'm in this place in my life where I am trying to hand over those reins a little bit. I've been working with this Native Center for Behavioral Health, this American Indian Alaska Native Trauma Center based out of Iowa, to create like this whole writing to heal curriculum. We've spent the past like 2 years developing it, and the goal is for it to be a curriculum that anybody can pick up and use, because I felt like so many people were like, well, can you come out to our community and lead this workshop? Can you come here? And it's like, I'm just one person. I want to like be more present for my family and relationships, but I really think anybody can do this work. So let me help teach you how. So we're finally getting to a place where more people are excited about that. More people are happy to hear that. Like, I think it helps pass along those seeds and blessings so people believe in themselves too. And so I'm on that path, but yet at the same time, I feel like it is always that that pressure, I think, of there's so much in the world that needs to be done. I'm just one person trying to activate other people to help do the work, and still on that quiet like background track in my mind trying to heal my own things, um, about letting go, and that it's okay to let go, and that I'm not meant to do everything. There's this movie my husband showed me a few years ago called Embrace of the Serpent, and there's a part in there where the people are looking for medicine, and the medicine helps, but when they have too much of the medicine, it makes them go crazy, or they kind of can abuse the medicine, and at that point the medicine becomes a poison. And I do feel like, as an artist who works with community, it's that delicate balance of, you have medicine, working with communities is medicine, but keeping track of your own heart, mind, and spirit so that you're honoring the medicine and not abusing it. Because when you abuse it, I think for me, I really believe there's so many other spiritual impacts. And, you might cause harm you don't mean to do. You might, lose relationships, or lose, connections with family members, or I just think there's other ripple effects that can happen. And so for me, it really is trying to stand in the power, honor those gifts, but also let go when I need to, and be humbled, like humble myself. Because I have learned, if I do not humble myself, I will be humbled. And that's always so much harder than constantly checking in with yourself.
Wow, that is so deep, all of that. Um, yeah, I mean, the medicine becoming a poison. I heard that Mother Teresa kind of did that. That she was she was so about it. She was so about it. Like, she wanted to feed every last child or something. And don't quote me on this because but at least a thought experiment. But what I heard was she lost herself, and I think, and I love that word balance, that it's not that we shouldn't do this work and enjoy it and be that catalyst. And it's so fun to be that catalyst, but like, yeah, balance. And I love that you're doing this curriculum, writing for healing, that you're sort of creating like an avatar of yourself that can be, well, not of yourself, but of the work that you could have done personally, so that Native people, Native women, Native men, Native people in general could apply this curriculum to their communities. So that, I think that's a really brilliant thing. And I'm making me think about my work, because I launched an online school last year called Rehuman School, and it's been really fun. But I'm like, yeah, wait, why do I have to be live at every single class? It doesn't really make sense. I could just create something that is very useful to people and make it more asynchronous, where people can do it anytime, and just focus a lot more on that. But I think there is that ego of like, I want to be there at the class with the people. And as a double Leo, I definitely struggle with ego. Like, I want to be the one who does it, and it's like, actually doesn't matter. Like, what matters is that it gets done, not that you're the one that does it.
Mm.
Um, But I also had, my grandmother, she, um, gosh, what a beautiful soul. And I was lucky to take care of her. But at the very end of her life, she was like, Lyla, like, can you stop traveling? Because I don't want to go to this specialized care facility. And she was 100 years, she was literally 100 years old when she told me that.
Mm.
And this woman was built of steel. Like the day that she died, she got into a car by herself, out of a car, into a restaurant and ate some food at the restaurant.
Wow.
Like she died at 100. And so I was like, oh, my grandma's never gonna die. Like, and and I was like, okay, grandma, yeah, because she would always tell me that. She's like, I feel like I'm gonna die soon. She started telling me that when she was 90. And she would say it every year. And I'm like, yeah, right, whatever. And I didn't stop traveling. I kept doing my gigs. I had a whole farm to keep afloat. I had my sheep and gallop and da da da. And lo and behold, she passed away when I wasn't there. And I was just like,
Mm.
I was so heartbroken. I was like, no way. I was supposed to be there holding her hand. Um, but I think at the same time, we should have grace for ourselves because,
Yes.
it's like we're not perfect. We don't always know the best thing to do. And okay, we get out of balance sometimes. We prioritize the wrong things sometimes. And like we learn from it, and that's okay. Yeah, it sucked. But like also wanting you to have a lot of compassion for yourself too, of like, okay, this is how we learn. And I know my grandma doesn't want me to carry that, even though I really struggle to not carry it because I still feel guilt and like, oh, I should have da 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 da. But I know my grandma's saying, Lyla, let that go. Like I need you to walk free. I need you to not, you already have enough you're carrying, and just learn from it and let it go.
You're listening to Mother Earth Medicine,
An ancestral intelligence podcast to heal our future.
This podcast is brought to you by Cultural Survival. We are an Indigenous-led organization that has been supporting Indigenous peoples in their self-determination, defense of their rights and territories, and continuance and revitalization of their lifeways, cultures, and languages for more than 50 years.
We invite you to visit our website, www.cs.org, and make a donation. Every donation counts, no matter the size. Your donation will go a long way to ensure that Indigenous voices across the planet are heard and actions are taken to protect their rights and territories, along with the future of Mother Earth.
Thank you for contributing to our work with Indigenous peoples around the globe. It's an investment in a flourishing future for all.
That kind of leads into my next question, which is like, how do we navigate? This is sort of changing subjects here, but when we go into Native communities, you and I think we experience a lot where people are much more than the average American, much, much, much more processing the grief of losing loved ones, losing the last speaker of the language in the community, losing a friend to a DUI or like a drunk driving accident, or because all of this trauma that the system of colonization has kind of forced onto our communities. It's like we just have to deal with death a lot more. Our sisters going missing. I mean, just all manner of tragedies that I don't think an average American really understands how much tragedy we have to sustain in our bodies, like on the monthly basis. Sometimes that's when it gets really hard for me, when I see my relatives like on a monthly basis, like compounding sorrow, basically. um how how do we navigate that grief? How do you navigate that grief? What are some of your thoughts on that grief? How do we maybe make it to where we don't have to have so much grief all the time? Yeah, kind of just what are your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, I think that's so much to unpack. And I have other thoughts as well too about present time, but just curious what you think too. I feel like for me, this, like you're living in it when you grow up, depending on your community and whatever that community is, whether it's reservation based or urban, like you have your community and there's just so much happening to us. And when you're younger, you don't always have the language for it. You don't recognize that some of the grief and the things happening come from that historical trauma, the boarding school era, from just ways our grandparents and parents did the best they could to cope. So then you have a lot of anger and sadness, maybe fear. You're like, we're developing PTSD before we even know it's a thing. And then, you get older and you learn and you try to have more grace, but you're in it and it's hard to like see through it when you're in it. And I know for me, I grew up with a lot, seeing a lot. And when I went to college, I know I kind of felt what I just feel is like survivor's guilt because I felt like I quote unquote got out and I have this bright, shiny future ahead of me. And yet I still was always connected to home. I was still always hearing about what was going on at home. And you're with a bunch of other natives from different communities too, and you're sharing with each other what's going on in your homes. And then it's just like, wow, like everybody's going through it. I felt like it made it so much harder to survive college, was just navigating that grief, which for me, I guess I didn't really navigate it at first. I just was numbing it, through unhealthy relationships, unhealthy behaviors, drinking at times. And but I, like you said, I have grace and compassion for myself because that's the only way I knew to like navigate it then, was to just, that was how I survived. And I think now I see a lot of our communities stuck between navigating the grief and having those like coping mechanisms and trying to have that grace and trying to hope we find these like outlets to grieve. But it's hard when you're in survival mode, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, or if you're seeing loss after loss or trauma after trauma. Like it's so hard to regulate. It's so hard to get present and be in your body, in your spirit. Like it's hard. And I feel like a lot of people don't understand. I feel like already this year I've had several calls with people from different tribes naming some of those things you've said, like naming a lot of suicides happening, naming all of these things happening, and everybody's just really trying to search for hope, trying to search for help. Um, and I don't have the answers. I know what has helped me, and yet I still have continued to avoid grief or made excuses or had unhealthy behaviors, made unhealthy choices, like hurt people I didn't mean to hurt. And so I think it's just this almost beautiful super stew that we're trying to navigate, where it's like the grief is in there. How do I get some things to nourish myself in there? How do I um, like take care of myself? Like they always say it as a cheesy metaphor, right? Like put on your own air mask before you put on another person's. And, for those who don't fly, it's, you can't pour from an empty cup. You have to fill your cup. And for so many of us who are community oriented, family oriented, it can feel selfish to prioritize your self care. And I think it's just a big learning journey that we're on. Like you said, I really do feel like we're all, we are spirits in bodies, in human forms. And part of what we're meant to do here is to learn how to be human, learn how to have compassion and forgiveness and grace. And it's hard. It's hard to hold emotions. I know I really struggle with feeling anything other than um, positivity and optimism, which I think can be toxic sometimes because how old I am now, I don't make space for anger. I don't make space for discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
I feel uncomfortable feeling those things, but underneath anger is sadness, and I think grief is anger and sadness. So, a
Mm.
long way to say I'm still figuring out how to navigate it.
No, wow. toxic positivity. I've heard people talk about that, but I think you just explained it more clearly than I, because I didn't really understand what they mean, because I'm like, what's wrong with positivity? But yeah, I think it's when you deny what you're actually feeling, as a cover up, disguised as everything's fine, and to really go into the mud of those harder emotions, because that's how we can release them. But yeah, I really appreciate everything you said, and I'm curious what else you think about how we metabolize grief, hopefully. And I know some communities and some nooks and crannies of our communities, it's just like there's no way out. It's like even if you wanted to put on your own oxygen mask, you're in a home with no money, and you don't really have a phone, you don't really have a car. You All you have is your family, who may or may not be functional at all or even safe. But I just want to say to everyone that there is always a lifeline out there, even if it's literally just calling those hotlines of just emotional support. And there's always people out there who will help if we reach out and ask for it and pray for it. And we and sometimes even just create it, like if you don't have it, create a support circle in your community, where you get to set the tone of what the relationship is between the people in that circle, where you get to create it for others, and in doing so create it for yourself. But yeah, I think sometimes the puzzle is not very easy to figure out as Indigenous people. And I really want to say something really important is that this is not our doing. It's not our fault that we even have to deal with this, and we shouldn't be having to deal with it. That's also a really important thing to say. It's like, we should not be having to deal with this. The only reason we're dealing with this is because, frankly, they couldn't kill us all. I'm just going to say it, in the 1800s, they decided it was not socially acceptable to exterminate us. So then they put us on reservations, and isolated us from any kind of economic growth, any kind of really honoring who we are and what we stand for. And then you put this toxic plague of casinos into our communities. Gambling is illegal in the United States for a reason,
Mm-hmm.
and like, we did not ask for any of this. And so I think that's a really important thing, is to not problematize ourselves, right? Like, we are not the problem here. And all of this stuff is actually much more a reflection of the colonial society that came around than us. It actually has nothing to do with us. Yes, we have to process it and heal from it, but it did not come from us. And I think that's a healing thing in and of itself, to not identify with it, because it's really the challenges we face are not about us. And furthermore, I think it's really important to just apply a lot of self-love, a lot of self-love. And the other day, I think it was 2 years ago, my boyfriend dumped me in December. My dad died in January. My grandma died in February, and my grandpa died in March.
Oh, wow.
And then my property manager at my sheep farm stole $15,000 from me.
Oh my gosh.
So
I think I remember that. Yeah.
so it was just this like, and I had no choice but to just lay in bed for like 8 months. I had no choice. And you know what? I realized that is exactly what I needed to do. And I felt a little guilty of like, why am I not functional? Why can't I like just kick butt and take names and change the world and da da da? And it was my body saying, this is your time to just be sad. Like, this is your time to just be a bump on a log, because you know what? Your body has to honor all the sorrow that it's feeling. But you know what? The light came, and I knew it would. I was like, I think I'll be better around maybe like next spring. I'll be back in action. And it actually came a little sooner. It came in like December. So like, I think it's okay also to just be like completely incapacitated and completely non-functional, and just to know that that's part of your self-love, to like, as much as you can, that is part of me putting on my mask, was I just needed to just do nothing for a while.
Yeah, I love that you said that too, because I think in there is just like some of that lessons for self-love and transformation, like the lessons we get from Mother Earth, like their Mother Earth goes through seasons. And we all will have those times where we're in our fall, where we're needing to let go of things, or maybe we're being let go of from different people or connections or opportunities or jobs. And we'll have our winters where we do need to just rest and be um, feeling all the things we need to feel, that saying, you got to feel to heal. And there's going to be times where we get to have, our spring again and get to feel that growth. And it's not always going to be on the same timeline as other people, but to trust in like creator, trust in the universe that that timing does come back around. And I think, part of it too, like, I love how you're saying, just have that compassion and remembering like we live in these systems that were created to destroy us. And I hear people say time and time again, we are living in a time of monsters. And so what does that mean? Like for some of us, it might mean becoming monster slayers, like being the ones out there trying to change environments and create change. And it might be, what is your armor while we're in this time of monsters? What is your armor to protect yourself? And that can be self-love. It can be prayer. It can be, having a helpline that you can call, or it can be having your trusted circle of friends or a person you can reach out to. Maybe it is music or songs you listen to that help you feel better, or writing or books. There's just so many ways, medicines we can use to arm ourselves, because we are living in unprecedented times. And even though these are our wars and battles our ancestors have fought, like there's just so much that has changed that we're having to learn how to walk with new tactics, new things that are like forcing us to, I don't know, just figure out how to live in this world that continues to be really struggling. Like this world, this colonial world struggles in a lot of ways. And I know we'll endure. I know we'll do it together. I know there's still a lot for us to learn, but I do believe like it starts with that self-care, and in a lot of my work, I always hear people say, we are warriors. We are made to do hard things. And yes, that is true. But I also like don't want us to do so many hard things we become hardened. So how do we stay soft while we're navigating grief? How do we stay soft while we're figuring out our place in the world? Because when we're soft, we're malleable. We can move, we can adapt the way our communities or our families or creators asking us to. And if we're hard, it's harder to hear. It's harder to listen. It's harder to move the way we're being asked to move. And it can be challenging, like I said, with all these external influences trying to tell us what matters or what we need to do to matter. But I think it comes back to that self-care, self-love, and being in touch with yourself to listen to what your spirit's asking you to do to heal yourself, so you can help others on their healing journey too.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I love the compassion we have for ourselves and for others, and even having compassion for ourselves for not having compassion for ourselves.
Yes.
Saying like layers of meta compassion, like we're just gonna mess up. And sometimes we mess up really bad. I mean, royal F ups, and like even loving those parts of ourselves too. And like maybe the world doesn't want us to feel the sunshine anymore, but we have to want ourselves to feel the sunshine again. And I know that highly likely we only made those gigantic mistakes because we had our own uh traumas that happened to us that led to that point, and like to not forget that part too. It's like you didn't just do that in a vacuum. You didn't just do that um out of nowhere, right? Like it had a lot of build up, maybe years, maybe lifetime of, trauma and etc. But I guess I love what you said, like we will endure. And I want to end maybe on this idea, which is that think about how far our nations have come in the past, let's say 100 years. Let's say 1926. My grandmother was born in 1924. She died in 2024. And think about the change that happened in her life for Native people. I mean, this woman was born into a time where people were following her around the grocery store because she was brown and they thought she was going to steal stuff as a little girl.
Mm.
This woman was born in a time where she went to a boarding school where she saw kids get their mouths washed out with soap for speaking their language. This woman was born in a time where women didn't even have their own name. They were called Mrs. Donald McCabe. Her husband was she was the property of her husband by these standards. Fast forward to 2026 or 2024 when she passed away. Her granddaughter and her granddaughter's friend Tanaya and all these super gorgeous, beautiful Native people all around the country are having this renaissance of culture and language and power and self-love and beauty. And the world is having the courage to admit that these were mistakes of colonization. Some still don't have that courage, but a lot of people do. And we're forming alliances with people whose grandparents were actively destroying our grandparents. And so I guess that just gives me hope that, like, gosh, it's such a struggle, but I think it is worth it at the end of the day. That imagine the year 300, sorry, math is not my strong point. 2,300.
I'm not good at it either. Yeah.
2000, the year 2126. That will be 100 years from now. 2126. Let's call it that. Imagine what our children are going to have. I mean, yeah, it's going to be crazy. The whole planet's going to look different because of the climate change. But God only knows what kind of lessons they're going to learn and what kind of communities they're going to create from the ashes of this place, and what kind of things that we have to put in place for them so that they know how much we love them and they know how much we fought for them. And I think it will get better, believe it or not. I know we're in the era of doom and gloom and polycrisis and meta crisis and political collapse and this collapse and everything's collapsing. But I really do feel like, just like an addict who's hitting rock bottom and their whole world is unraveling, that humanity is kind of going through that. And there's always this beautiful renaissance afterward, that this phoenix rises from these ashes, and we get to be a part of that. And most importantly, to love each other and ourselves in this very messy process of healing and learning. And so I just wanted to end on that note of, like, it's only gonna get better from here for Indigenous peoples, and we really have to create those homes and those infrastructures for those beautiful things to sprout and grow, and just as my grandmother did for me.
I love that. And I believe that too. I'm right there with you. Things are changing. Things are going to change. We're in that darkness before the dawn, but it's coming.
Yes, thank you, my sister. It's an honor to hang out with you as always. I'm really glad this podcast happened so we could have an excuse to catch up, because I haven't talked to you in so long.
Yeah.
And I'm going to wrap it up there. And I just want to thank everyone and say to our Indigenous sisters and femmes out there, we love you. To all non-Indigenous listeners who are listening, we love you too. Thanks for learning about everything. And we know it's a mirror of all races, of all communities around the world. We're all experiencing these similar things. and just sending lots of appreciation to everyone. And I'm loving your puppy in the background, giving his or her voice to the conversation too. And yeah, may we continue to be instruments of change for our earth, but also to give those instruments a rest every now and then. Please check out Tanaya's website at tanayawinder.com. That's TANAYA winder.com. And thank you for being here, sis.
Thank you for having me, sis.
Mother Earth Medicine is a podcast brought to you by Cultural Survival. Stream us on your favorite podcast platform and follow us on Instagram and Facebook under Cultural Survival, and also on Instagram under Mother Earth Medicine Podcast.
We would like to thank the Cornell Ornithology Lab for allowing us to use recordings of the yellow-bellied sapsucker from their collection. This bird is known to the Choctaw people as Viskinik, the little Choctaw newsbird.
If you like our content, please share it with others. It's very important that the wisdom of Indigenous nations reaches as many communities as possible. And please consider joining us in solidarity by making a donation to Cultural Survival at cs.org/donate.